Hello, everyone. Welcome to MacX Learn Introduction to UI and UX. Before we start today's event, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered today. I'm Sai, and I'm the current events director at Monash Association of Coding, Mac for short. Thank you for coming today. So before we begin, I'd just like to talk about our club and who we are. We're a tech club that focuses on imparting valuable technical skills and industry relevant experience to students. And our goal is to foster a tech culture at Monash and provide a collaborative setting for students to learn from one another, build upon the skills they need for career in tech while making friends along the way. And we do this by delivering technical workshops like the one yesterday and today's one. Don't forget to check us out on social media. That's how we publish new workshops, and we'll share that in the chat. I'll be passing on to Alice, the current design director, to begin today's session.
Thanks so much for the intro, Sai. So thanks everyone for coming. This session will be about an introductory session to UI and UX as like a area of study and potential career path. And here we go. So just a quick brief intro about myself. I am the design director at Mac. I come from a background of computing and graphic design. So after I spent 2 years of like coding and studying software development, I decided that it wasn't for me, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life like debugging shit and staring at VS Code for 12 hours a day. So I stumbled upon UX and UI on the internet, and since then I've been reading like blogs, doing my own case studies, and this is where I am today, giving you guys a talk about UI and UX and how you can, if you're interested, how you can get started, the UX design process, roles in UX and UI, who is it for, and at the end an internship overview of the current internships for UI and UX if you want to get into the field. All right, so let's kick it off. So what is UI and UX? UI is, by definition, user interface. It stands for user interface, and it is the series of screens, pages, and visual elements like buttons and icons that enable a person to interact with a product or service. And by product or service, I mean it's not necessarily a physical product that we're talking about. It can also be a digital product. For example, Facebook is a product, Instagram is a product. Think about like any of the web applications you use in your daily life. Like we're on Zoom right now, and Zoom is also a product. And user experience, UX is short for user experience, and UX is about the user interaction or experience with the product or service. The thing to note is that UX is not about the visuals. It focuses on the overall feel of the experience. And that is the difference between UX and UI. If all that just literally just went over your head, this is how you can remember it. UX is how it looks, and UI is how it looks, and UX is how it feels. And this is a brief diagram explaining a bit about what you might be doing when you're in UX and what you might be seeing if you're in UI. So as you can see, UX encompasses like interaction design, wireframes and prototypes, information architecture, and UI is mostly about the visual design, like the overall like layout, colors, graphic design and typography that you see in a web application. Okay, so let me explain about bad UX examples. First example I've got for you is a toilet And you might be asking, why the hell is she showing me a picture of a toilet? Like, what does that have to do with UX? And the answer is maybe nothing, maybe everything. So got a question to ask. Which is a small flush and which is the big flush on the toilet? I'll give you like 5 seconds to take a look and have a think. And the answer is, you might be thinking that the big flush is obviously the one on the left because it's big, and therefore if you press it, more amount of water will come out. But the reality is, I could also say that the big flush is bad user experience, because the big flush is designed in such a way that it covers more surface area, so more people would press it because it's such a large surface area as compared to the small flush, which is not what toilet designers want you to do, because the idea is that you want to save you save more water if you press the small flush. So that is an example of a bad UX in a toilet. This is bad UX because it's confusing to users and doesn't fulfill its purpose well. A second example is probably a more relevant one, and that would be, I'll show you a screen, 2 screens, one with bad UX and one which has the UX drastically improved. So this is a delete account information, like dialogue or modal, which you will probably have seen when you use, like, say, social media or any sort of application that requires you to have an account. And if you want to delete it, this is what you get shown. And this is bad UX. Why is that bad UX? It's because it has lots of typos and typesetting errors. If you zoom in, and you can probably see, like, the typesetting is a bit off. There's spelling errors, says lose your profile instead of you lose your profile. And the delete account button is not at the correct color, because the color that is shown is representative of, like, if you're making the user want to delete the account instead of warning them that deleting your account is a bad thing. So that's another point. And the message is also kind of repetitive. Like, it already says delete account at the top, so the small message in the middle does not need to be repeated. And so here is a drastically better improvement of the delete account information example. So why is this better? It's because the delete account button is actually the right color, and it signals to the audience that this is a warning. Think before you press the button. And the icon, there's a delete icon, which is a visual cue to show the audience that this is a delete account notification. And also the message is more condensed so it's easily scannable by people who don't want to read that much information all at once. So overall, just like small visual cues like color and typography is all what contributes to a better user experience. Okay, any questions at the moment? No questions at the moment? All right, sorry, I forgot the call.
Actually, I
Yeah,
have a
sorry.
question if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So that was kind of talking about UX, yeah, but it was still talking about like colors and topography.
Yes.
Was that under like the UI section?
Yeah. About that, I'll touch on it briefly. There's a bit coming at the next part that
Yeah, right.
talks a little
That's
bit
okay.
about UX and UI as a combination.
Yep.
I completely forgot. I'll just get to know a bit more about you guys. Do you guys want to do a poll? So I can get bit more info about you and what you're studying and what you want to perhaps get out of the session. Yes, thank you, Sai, for the reminder. All right, just give it a couple of seconds. Okay, moving on. Okay, myths about UX and UI that you may have heard, but you should not believe. So these is basically, I'll go through a bunch of terms I've heard like on the internet and what I've personally heard from people who are new to the field or don't know much about UX and UI. And first one is UX and UI are basically the same thing, aren't they? And this is not true because sometimes people use these terms interchangeably when in reality they're very different things. UI is mostly about the visual elements, while UX is about the overall experience. And the way, just answering your question from before, is I like to picture it like this sort of diagram where UI is a subset of UX, if that makes sense, where looking good and having the correct visual layout, typography, shapes, color, which are all part of a UI, contributes to the overall user experience, which is you overall feel about the product. Hoping that answers your question.
Yeah, that's all good.
All right, awesome. Next one, UX UI design is basically graphic design, isn't it? And the answer is also no. Graphic design is only the surface of it. It's easy to say that just because it's graphic design is the thing you see when you look at a website, it's easy to assume that that's all that UX and UI designers do, but that is simply not true because there's definitely much more depth to it. There is a whole process of designing that is not only focused on the visual aspects. Go into that a bit later. And next one, you have to be artistic or creative to be a UX designer. And that is also incorrect assumption because UX is much about creativity as it is about your technical and problem solving skills. It's about combining creativity with problem solving to find the best solution to a problem. And a quote I like to emphasize is that the best design is invisible, which means like the design the good design that you see, say like Instagram or Facebook, it's not like flashy colors or like over the top graphics and illustrations. It's the interface itself isn't really like eye-catching, and that's what I mean by say the best design is invisible. It's you don't even realize that it's good design. It's just like effortless to use and overall has a really good user experience. All right, this last one I want to emphasize, this is the one I find really, really common among people who are new or want to get into UX for the first time. To be a UX designer, you have to know how to code. And this is simply not true as well, because that's what developers are for. Your job is to create a design so that is understandable and viewable to developers, and so that they can transform your design into code and turn your design into life. It's definitely more about your design skills and understanding and application of design theory. Though I would like to say that it is a bonus if you know how to code. It just helps with understanding the scope of what you're designing, like what's feasible and what might not be. Whereas as just a UX and UI designer, you may not have the knowledge, coding knowledge to understand what feasibility of your product, if the developers can actually turn it into proper code or not. All right, any more questions before we dive into the fun stuff, which is the whole UX and UI process? Any questions at all? All right, moving on. Next up, the UX and UI design process. So this diagram was taken off Adobe XD, and this goes emphasize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, which is saying this is a methodology of how you would go about in a UX design process. And there are multiple steps involved, beginning from understand, research, analyze, design, test, and launch, and then analyze again. And these are the actual like steps that you take to achieve the design solution that you want. So first of all, understanding the problem. So before any sort of design, the most important thing is to understand what you're making, which is also called your value proposition. And what that basically means is the value that what you're designing will have for the real world. So asking questions like, who is it for? What is it going to be? Is it going to be a web app or a mobile app or anything else? Why is it important? What purpose does it serve in the real world? And why should people like use your design? And the business goals, which could be like related to like say for example you have an app and you want to, like this before it wasn't a social app, but you want to add like say a social layer where users can interact with each other. So that's different from before where people only have their own user profile, and now you want to extend that business goal to make it so that users can interact with each other. That could be a business goal. And yeah, next part. And it's important to establish the understanding part really early on, so you can always keep on track of what you're designing, and you can refer back to that goal throughout the whole design process. Okay, research. For the research part is mainly gathering more information and validating that what you want to design is a viable and does need a solution. And if you want to solve that problem, say like what you need to consider and how you'd go about it, how viable is your solution. So you could do user research by surveys and interviews. Surveys is just like surveying people via Google form or Typeform or whatever to gain a better understanding of your target audience and what they're interested in and what they find like wrong with the current design. Design if you're, say, redesigning something that's already existing. And also interviews, which is could be virtual or in person. It's basically another way, it's a great way to gain an understanding of what a user's pain points are and just a general deeper understanding of the problem. And competitor research could apply if you know who your competitors are. And so there could be people who are trying who currently have a similar idea to you, and it could be a system that's currently existing. And you could identify potential competitors and see what they're doing as part of the research phase, and like expand upon their ideas. So what this could look like is basically, here are a few examples of 2 surveys and also an interview happening in person. So what I'm saying is surveys and interviews can be like really hands-on, because you're actually interacting with a person, and so you can actually better understand what they want. And next part is analyze phase, and this part is where you gather data and draw insights about them from your research. And this is basically where you draw correlations from what you gathered from your interviews and surveys, find common pain points that people complain about, and draw a conclusion from that. So giving an example again, say that you're doing a research on the current Monash website, and you're like, you discover in a survey that X amount of people think that the website's usability could be better, or XX amount of people find it hard to navigate on the website. So this is your chance to gather like qualitative and quantitative data about like supporting your assumptions about what your theory is from the start. And this phase usually includes the user persona, which you may have heard about. And this is an example showing a sample user persona. And this should be like basically a snippet of information, like condensing all the information that you gathered from your research and presenting it in a like understandable way, so that you're encapsulating like all the information about like 100 people in 1 or 2 user personas. That makes sense. And also this phase includes user journey mapping. And what that is a journey map of what you would like the user to ideally feel and their thoughts when they interact with your application. So it maps out every point of a user's interaction with your product, and you can frame it like this. As a user, I want to goal so that motivation. Next step is the design phase. And this is arguably probably the longest part in the whole UX design process, because it entails everything from say like ideation to high fidelity wireframes, and going in between that, everything going in between that. So this is a chance to apply your design thinking and develop your ideas and turn it into a visual representation from the data and insights you currently have. And this phase includes wireframes, going from low fidelity to mid fidelity to high fidelity. And to give you examples, images of that, this is what a low fidelity wireframe could look like. As you can see, it's really just really simple pencil sketches could be, or really like loosely drawn out digital wireframes. And the point of that is to communicate your idea rather than your design. So like normally in this page you would have a bunch of ideas that you want to explore, and this is a chance for you to draw them out on paper really roughly before you choose to develop them even further in detail. And this example of mid fidelity, I would say, it's very much mid fidelity. So you can see they're a bit more like established. There's like actual rectangles which are made on a prototyping like app or something, and this will actually convey like what is actually on each screen, and it's a bit more detailed than the low fidelity ones. And high fidelity is basically the type of prototype that is most closest to the real thing, as I would say. And this is where you have all your like components all like crafted carefully, spacing aligned, all in the right, on the like a really visually pleasing format, and all the button sizes really carefully considered, and high attention to detail in design. And what that looks like as a comparison from low fidelity to mid fidelity to high fidelity is something like this. CTA stands for call to action, and what that would represent is a call to action button telling the user to click on it, basically. Oh, I've got a question. I see a question in the chat. All these designs you're showing being created on Adobe XD or elsewhere. Yeah, interesting question. I'm not sure where they're created because they're sourced on the internet, but Adobe XD is definitely not the only prototyping app there is. Adobe XD is one of the prototyping apps. There's also Figma, Axure, if you've heard of it. and Sketch, which are all prototyping apps that you can use for UI and UX design. Yep. All right, so after your wireframes, you have your prototypes, and what this is the difference between wireframe and prototype is that a prototype is the way that you connect your wireframes. So you have all your wireframes, which are like static screens on the page, and you have your prototype, which is how you connect the screens. Say that the home page goes to this page and that page goes to that page, and that's what a prototype is like. And the clickable elements in a prototype, say you've got buttons, and in a prototype you would want to make them clickable so that they actually go somewhere. And here is where you start thinking about what animations you want to do to like make the user experience process a little bit more fun and interactive. So it is highly focused on interactions. And next step is the testing phase, where this is where you validate your prototype via usability testing. And what that could be is A to B testing, walkthroughs, surveys, analytics. A to B testing is kind of like, it's like where you have screen 1 with one design and screen 2 with a whole different design, and you go to a user and say, which one do you like best? It's basically that. And walkthrough, got an example of a walkthrough. It's where you say it's a bunch of tasks you could ask your user to do, and the testing condition is a pass or a fail, where, like, for example, you click on the transaction tab, like, does the user know where to click on the screen? And passes when it's yes, they do know where to click, so you've done a good job. And fail is kind of like they need a bit of help, so that means there's something wrong with the interface that could require improving. And surveys, you could do a survey which ask people generally what they think about the app or like website you've designed. And analytics is when you use an analytics tool to like help you gather data about who's clicking where and what users are likely looking at on the screen compared to what they ignore or tend to gloss over. And after you've done your testing, that's when the exciting part happens, is when you can launch your app into the world. No, not really. Commonly in the design process, there would be an engineering handover where your design is not actually straight away like deployed into the real world. You have to go through handing over to developers who will be able to turn your design into code. And yeah. But however, just because you launched your product does not mean you abandon your project. As the design process is, design is a highly it's iterative process. It's not like straight up linear. And I would say so for the UX design process as well. It's not like one straight line of this is what you must do in 7 steps. It's a highly iterative process where you should be going back between testing and prototyping, and then back to testing to see if you find more issues, if you come up with a better idea to solve a problem. And at the end, which is not actually the end. This is an opportunity to identify points of improvement, validate how well your product is received by a target user, and build upon features you previously left out due to time constraints, and identify where you struggled with in the design process, and identify like how you could do better next time, basically. All right, so next up, we've got an overview. I'll give an overview of the UX and UI roles that you can specialize in if you're interested in the field and want to know a bit more about like the specific roles that UX and UI designers might be, rather than like straight up UX and UI designers. So there's a UX designer, which is in charge of just UX, as UI designer, in charge of just UI, product designer, UX researcher who just focuses on the researching phase, UX writer. It could be someone who writes all the content required for, say, like what goes on buttons and what goes on like landing pages, the chunk of text that appears in the descriptions. That's all what a UX writer might do. A content designer is someone who could, say, just be in charge of designing only landing pages. And yeah. All right, who is it for? How do you know UX and UI design might be right for you? So I've got like these bunch of criteria are the main criteria for deciding if UX and UI might be for you. You enjoy and have a knack for problem solving. And I say this because problem solving is an integral part of any design process. It's to find the best solution for a problem that exists. And next one is you have a high attention to detail. This is especially important for UI designers because like a lot of the time you might be like looking at a design system and like making sure all the buttons and components are lined up perfectly. Lots of like nitty-gritty work. And if you're both highly creative and analytical, so like I said before, design, it's both a creative and analytical process. So you might be interested in that if you're interested in exploring your creative side as well as your analytical side. And if you're empathetic, this could be for you because UX and UI design involves talking to, engaging with a lot of the end users for your design. So you're actually like talking to and surveying the people you're designing, trying to understand what they like or dislike or what they want. So that is an important quality. And another one is if you're interested in the intersection between psychology and tech. So as I said before, it's a bit of psychology as well as applying your tech knowledge to like understand and solve problems. Okay, cool story, bro. I'm interested. How do I get started? So the most important thing I want to emphasize is that design is a practice and that simply learning the theory of like a course isn't enough. You have to actually apply the learnings you have learned about in an actual project, which you can undertake in. And how you can do that is by working towards a design portfolio. This is essential for any this is essential for anyone looking to pursue UX design as a career. If you don't have a portfolio and you want to apply for a UX design job, you're not going to have much luck. Okay, but how do I start building a portfolio when I have no projects? Yeah, the lucky thing about UX and UI is that there's a lot of resources on the internet and a lot of like courses and blogs about it. And if you want the easiest solution is to take one of these subjects. Mainly the first one, actually, usability. To build, so you can have a chance at building a project in a classroom and applying the design theory that you learn in a real scenario. The most important thing is that you're actually doing stuff to exercise those skills. So, yep, first one, usability. You can find it in the Monash handbook. It's under that title. External courses. There's also options of like General Assembly and Coursera. The Google UX Design certificate I heard is pretty good as well. All right, thanks, Sai. Yeah, and next up is what I would personally like lean towards as well is design hackathons or challenges. Especially UX hackathons. If you just like search up UX hackathon or on Eventbrite, you'll come up with a bunch of UX design hackathons, and they're like normal hackathons, except there's no coding involved. It's just designing. So you're like spending a whole week just designing or something. And there's also Adobe Creative Jam, which is another like hackathon thing, which you can also use to like participate with people, and you'll build a product or design an app together. It's a really good learning experience. And another thing you could do is an unsolicited redesign. And what this is a redesign of an app you currently use but think could have a better user experience. It could be literally anything, but I would like keep it within reason. Like don't go like off redesigning Instagram or Google or whatever. Find an app that you use frequently, that you're really familiar with. It could be a small app which you think that not many people use, or it could be like say the uni website, which you think has you think it's annoying because there's an aspect of it that you could improve. And yeah, you could try to design something that is better, basically. And passion project, this is pretty similar to unsolicited redesign, except it's your idea, entirely original idea of what you think like we're missing in the world. Hint, that's where most startups are formed. If you want to start your own startup, could try designing something for my passion project. And yeah, those are the 5 ways essentially that I'd recommend if you want to get started into the field. It is definitely about definitely more about doing rather than like learning all the theory. Of course, theory is important, but you're actually practicing is the most important part. All right, so next up, spicy stuff. There are a bunch of companies that offer internships in UX and UI design. I've given an overview of them below. Some of them sponsoring us. Deloitte is sponsoring us. Canva and Alash University sponsoring us. So if you'd like, keep an eye out on like our socials. We could be posting about them in the future. But this is an overview of all the companies that offer internships, and this is sourced from Mac Tech Internships, which is this internship board the MAP committee has been working on over the holidays. So it's now out for you guys if you want to check it out. I don't know if there's a link. I don't know if anyone wants to paste the link. Yep. Anyway, Q&A. I'm opening the stage up for any further questions. Yep, there you go. The internships link is in the chat. So thank you. All right, no questions at the moment? Or have I completely answered everything? Everyone, are there roles for people who want to design and code as well? Design and code. It depends what kind of role you're talking about and like what kind of company. A role could be varied from it depends on the role, the particular role at the particular company, because in front end edge typically is you only code. You don't touch the design like typically, but if you're in like say a smaller company, a startup, the roles might be varied. So you could be designing and coding at the same time. Largely depends on the company and the particular role they're advertising, because it's like not defined. The role is not a set definition. It varies.
Does this kind of stuff convert to other sort of careers or areas a lot? Like you could sort of like implement this in other ways, I guess.
Do you mean, if by this sort of stuff, do you mean UX and UI design or?
Yeah, UI and UX.
So what type of like areas are you thinking about? Are you thinking about say software engineering or
On that checklist,
design?
I was in the other section. I do like science and education.
Mm.
So like I guess this could apply to like an educational app or something like that, yeah. Like it doesn't, yeah.
I'm not sure. I think like a background in education applies more to UX and UI more than the other way around. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting the question correctly, but
It probably wasn't a very specific question. Don't worry too much.
that's all right.
It was the question's more like, do the skills you learn through using UI and UX, can they help you in other career paths, not necessarily in coding or that kind of thing?
I think normally is that you have more skills in other areas that are transferable to UI and UX.
Oh, okay.
For example.
Yeah. So you use
As long as
previous knowledge, and then you kind of use UI and UX to show the world it, sort of thing. Or
yeah.
No, that's fair.
So for example, if you come from a marketing background, you could use your knowledge of your users to help better understand and shape business goals when applied to UI and UX. And for graphic design, you use your like theory of design knowledge to apply to UX and UI principles. I'm not very sure about the other way around.
Yeah, no, that's right. Thank you.
Oh yeah, good point, Sid. It would help in product management roles. If you're familiar with product management, it's like the theory you learn from product design and product/UX UI design helps you think in kind of like a business-minded way. So that would be helpful for product management, where you're managing the engineering, the design, and the business, which is very, very similar in product management and product design. Yes, you're right. Research and problem solving and creativity, it's all transferable in like any sense. Yeah. All right. If there's no more questions, I'll go to the next slide. Oh, yeah. With sites like Canva, etc., where people can create their own designs, what is the scope of this career? What is the advantage of a UX UI designer? Scope of this career. That I would say Canva is more about graphical design in general. UX and UI is about like a web development kind of aspect. The advantage of that is so I see it as two kind of different areas, where Canva only covers say graphic and print design, and UX UI design is more like interfaces for websites. Does that make sense, Karina? Or have I missed a question? All right. Oh, I see. Depends on your, like, the purpose you're using those for. because for UX and UI design, it's solving a like software problem where Canva and like other design software is solving a marketing problem where like you just want to make catchy visuals that attract like an audience to view your product, rather than you're designing a solution for like people to use your product more easily. Hopefully that clears it up. Right. So here are socials if you'd like to follow Mac on social media. Facebook is the Monash Association of Coding, Instagram, Monash Coding, LinkedIn, Monash Association of Coding. Here you go. There's a link tree in the comment section if you want to go to that. So the courses at Monash help us with proficiency in popular, I'm assuming that says UI UX design softwares. I can't say for sure because I've never actually taken any of the courses, unfortunately. But I do encourage you to try outside. Like practice your own case studies and just learning the software by yourself if you're interested, because the standard at university sometimes does not translate to the industry very well. Like say, I'm not sure what prototyping software like Monash uses, but Figma is generally used, the most popular one used in the industry, and would definitely recommend give it a shot, because I don't think the courses at Monash, the subjects at Monash touch on that. What courses of education have you personally done? I did the Google UX Bootcamp, and that's pretty good one. I recommend. It goes through the UX design process in really in depth and with like proper examples, and they give you prompts that they recommend, and it basically goes through the process really in depth. Every stage of it. All right, if you're still here, please fill out the survey. Thank you for coming.